The world blinked, and Prince Louis vanished. No more school appearances, no more waving from the royal balcony, no more innocent smiles photographed by the press. Overnight, the youngest light in the monarchy simply disappeared, and the palace confirmed the cause just today. Their statements, however, only tell half the tale, because that sentence conceals a lengthy history of rumors, classified documents, and one terrible decision that changed the path of history. Before we get further into what this truly means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any updates. For weeks, there were rumors in royal viewing groups. At first glance, it seemed like a simple oversight. Perhaps a sick child remaining at home, or simply being excluded from the media circus. But as event after incident passed, with Prince Louis conspicuously absent, those whispers turned into urgent questions. The young prince was so popular and vibrant. Why had he quit the public stage? Then came the official engagements, those highly symbolic and meticulously organized ceremonial events. Prince George stood tall behind his father. Princess Charlotte, calm as ever, grinned royally. Prince Louis's previously filled spot is now vacant, nevertheless. No pictures, no explanation, not even a passing mention. Anxiety gave way to confusion when the Wales family was expected to be represented at 3 important royal functions, but only 4 members showed up. Following the Commonwealth Day service, there will be a color-changing ceremony and a Remembrance Sunday celebration. Prince Louis was never there. Each time, the palace remained silent while rumors intensified. The British public, who could see through the royal facade, knew that something was up. To a monarchy so preoccupied with image, it was deafening. Was this an internal decision, a secret Welsh rebellion, a medical problem, or something far more serious? The absence began to feel less like discretion and more like concealment. Then came the moment that caught everyone off guard. Just a minute ago, as headlines roared across screens worldwide, the castle's silence was broken. The comment was brief, clinical, and perhaps too cautiously worded. It referred to a decision made in the best interests of the young prince and mentioned a period of protected time away from public life. But to those who know the inner workings of the royal machine, that statement was not comforting. It was code. Here, privacy wasn't the only problem. This was about something that had gone terribly wrong. Because underlying the polished phrases came a distinct undertone, something urgent, something terrifying. The palace wasn't only acknowledging that Prince Louis wasn't there. It was evidence that the decision to hide him was irrevocable. It resulted from something bigger, something hidden, something outside of their control. And if history has taught us anything, it is that the palace always has a valid excuse for remaining silent. It's not the first time a royal child has been kept out of the spotlight. It has happened before with terrible outcomes. Once a youngster has disappeared into the great darkness behind the crown, it is rarely easy to return. To understand the significance of this absence, however, we must return to the first signs that something was seriously, horribly wrong in the royal hallways. No one paid attention, even though it was all captured on camera. Prince Louis's body language spoke more than words when he was last seen standing with his family on that well-known balcony. Those lost moments now have a terrible new meaning after the palace's unexpected revelation. At first glance, it seemed like any other party. The royal family was in full view, waving to the enthusiastic crowd, their smiles polished and perfected. But one unassuming, unremarkable person stood out. Prince Louis, who was usually boisterous and full of unpredictable charm, stood strangely still. His hands, which are often the source of contagious mischief, were still clasped. His face was expressionless, almost rehearsed. The timidity that once appeared to be childishness is shown to be something deeper that was quietly pleading for attention in frame after frame. A well-known expert on child behavior then examined the film. Her findings stunned many who heard them. Prince Louis exhibited averted eye contact, emotional retreat, stiff posture, and the kind of squirming that is more suggestive of internal distress than of playful restlessness, she said. She observed how he silently leaned away from the crowd and how his shoulders stiffened whenever a cheer sounded from below. These weren't the actions of a child enjoying themselves. They were the silent indicators that someone was struggling to maintain their relationship. Next was Catherine. Most people couldn't see the tinge of stress in her elegant smile, but as I watched it again, I noticed a certain point. A glance, barely a second. Instead of feeling proud, she gazed at her kid with anxiety, subtle but unmistakable. Instead of checking in for comfort, a mother can do so out of fear that something might go wrong. And in that fleeting gaze, her facade slipped. It was a very odd signal. During the song, Prince William shifted slightly, scanning the crowd before concentrating on one of his senior aides, who was standing silently behind the family. With a single, firm nod, he sent the assistant back into the shadows. Although no one took notice at the time, it is impossible to ignore the implications in hindsight. Was the cue planned in advance? A tacit order to cease Prince Louis's visits after that day. In the past, Prince William has reportedly taken issues into his own hands to protect his children. And then there's what the press didn't print. A few photographers who later admitted in confidence that they were sworn to royal protocol were given strict instructions. No close-ups of Prince Louis, no solo shots, no lingering lenses. One even described receiving a vague request for an embargo hours before the event, a command that at the time left them perplexed. But all of a sudden, it fits perfectly into a puzzle that we weren't even conscious we were assembling. That final balcony appearance wasn't the result of just another royal tradition. It was a silent farewell, the kind that was orchestrated not with words, but with glances, stillness, and silent retreat. The palace had foreseen the outcome. The family knew. But for a few seconds, the public was permitted to cheer, which in fact marked the beginning of a disappearing event. Nevertheless, the indications persisted outside the balcony, as a storm was quietly growing out of control inside the palace. The crown itself, pressure, and protocols were all things she tried to shield him from. Catherine, formerly seen as the calm center of the monarchy, became its most fervent protector. And inside the palace's spotless walls, she begged for one thing: let him go behind the palace gates, where custom governs even the slightest whispers. Another story was being told. A silent struggle between a mother and a machine that is too powerful and geared to allow deviation. It began quietly. Handwritten letters to King Charles and a few senior officials were private, unfiltered, and filled with the kind of concern that only a mother could convey. Catherine pleaded for the redemption of her son. She didn't try to win anyone over. She pleaded for patience, compassion, and a respite from the endless program that was slowly ruining her child. In those letters, Catherine explained what a news clip would never show: Prince Louis's sudden, unwarranted tears, his retreat into solitude, and his once carefree laughter giving way to uneasy mumbling and quiet questions are examples of emotional shifts that occur at home. She told how he flinched at the sound of camera shutters, how he rejected royal teachers, and how he began to hide when palace staff came to visit. It wasn't a tantrum, but a request for help. However, Catherine had to contend with the limiting contradiction of her position while seeing her son's internal breakdown. She was not just a mother, but also the future queen consort. Her actions had political significance. Each request was reviewed, and as her need grew, so did the resistance. Palace experts warned her that dismissing Prince Louis would spark rumors, headlines, and panic. They wanted silence. They advocated for control. They pleaded, preserve the image. But Catherine wasn't thinking about the monarchy, she was thinking about her child. Her psychological conflict became unmanageable. She apparently declined to attend gatherings on a number of occasions until Prince Louis's predicament was rectified. According to senior staff, she shifted from being calm and courteous to becoming tense and unyielding. After someone discussed taking care of the Prince Louis issue, one aide recalled Catherine departing a planning session. The next day, she sent another letter. This time, it was more than a request. It was an ultimatum. When Prince Louis refused to leave his chamber to attend a formal unveiling with his siblings, it all came to a head. Coaxing was unsuccessful. He was not reassured. Catherine had been terrified by it. When the palace insisted on a last-minute appearance, Catherine drew the line, nor did she show up that day. Horror reverberated through the palace halls as she ignored the firm's calendar for the first time since joining the royal family, but the institution wasn't convinced. Protocol demanded stability, and emotional rifts had no place in that. But Catherine wasn't finished fighting. Her silence in public was the sound of a storm brewing inside of her. Her words went unheard in the war rooms of the royal image designers, but someone else had begun to listen. Someone closer to the throne and far more dangerous when irritated. But Catherine wasn't the only one who saw danger. Prince William also began to question whether his family's future was being sacrificed for a centuries-old custom. He was destined to be a ruler, but everything changed when he saw how the crown was hurting his child. Prince William, the stoic heir, was on the verge of losing it behind closed doors. His statements in those now publicized meeting notes are very awful. It happened behind closed doors at Clarence House, a never-to-be-held party that would subsequently be described by many who attended as the most explosive family feud since the Diana era. King Charles occupied the middle of the room, with Queen Camilla sitting on either side of him. Prince William arrived late, silent, chilly, and carrying a folder. That folder contained the things he had long avoided. Reports, letters, Catherine's sincere testimony, and most damning of all, a signed warning from Prince Louis's physician. What began as a discussion quickly turned into something far more combustible. At first, Prince William fought to maintain his composure. He was concerned by his son's apparent emotional deterioration, Catherine's entreaties, and the palace's resistance to change. However, one insider claims that when Queen Camilla interrupted and inquired as to if Prince Louis was simply going through a delicate phase, Prince William became irate. There was silence in the room as the future king, a man bred to lead, stood up, slammed the folder shut, and declared, "He's not your puppet." King Charles reportedly tried to persuade him that they were all working for Prince Louis's benefit. But Prince William's voice trembled with anger as he accused the royal apparatus, particularly Queen Camilla's entourage, of putting Prince Louis in the spotlight to curry favor, with the public citing an internal document he had received. Written by one of Queen Camilla's secretaries, he recommended a family-friendly presentation with Prince Louis to boost intergenerational support. It was not only manipulative, it was hazardous. The argument became more heated, by warning that any deviation from planned engagements would result in a media void. A senior royal advisor in attendance attempted to bring the group back to line. They said, "Then let them speculate," and Prince William turned to look at him. "I would rather they go after shadows than destroy my son." The statement even surprised King Charles, who had never seen his son so ready and intent to defy what he had been taught. And then the unthinkable. Prince William made the threat with cold resolve rather than anger. If the palace would not comply, and Prince Louis was not immediately excluded from any future public appearances, Prince Louis and Catherine would consider permanently leaving royal duties. One paper, concealed in a locked file in a private clinic in London, changed everything. This report was never supposed to leave the room, but it did. The disclosure about Prince Louis shocked the royal family and forced them to make a decision that no parent should ever have to make. The file was delivered quietly. Without any fanfare or warning signs, a single letter was secretly sent to a royal medical liaison after passing from doctor to doctor. It included the results of a confidential evaluation. Weeks before, Catherine had quietly consented, desperate to learn the truth about her child. Prince Louis's behavioral changes had begun to disrupt his daily routine in addition to frightening his parents. He experienced dramatic outbursts and silent withdrawals, and there were times when he appeared unapproachable, even to those closest to him. Catherine had been terrified of what the findings would reveal, but she wasn't prepared for what she read. The report's conclusion was both alarming and illuminating. Experts discovered indications of a rare neurological vulnerability. It was tolerable, but exposure to high-pressure situations was making it considerably worse, particularly when there were crowds, cameras, and royal rituals involved. This situation could not be disregarded. Long-term psychological damage could result from continuous public exposure, the doctor cautioned. The response was straightforward. The truth behind this incident still feels incomplete when the palace doors close and the official pronouncements turn into well-chosen phrases. Beneath the titles, the rituals, and the centuries-old customs, a family is still dealing with decisions that no parent should ever have to face. A tiny child stands in the middle of it all, and his quiet has abruptly grown louder than any royal proclamation was, a youngster really shielded from a system that expects perfection by this decision. Or is there a more profound tale concealed behind the palace's walls that the general public might never learn? Every piece of this puzzle, from internal betrayals and secret medical reports to a mystical prophecy told decades ago, leaves more questions than answers. However, one thing is for sure, something changed within the monarchy itself the moment Prince Louis left the limelight. The most lingering question is probably whether this disappearance was an act of protection or the start of a much bigger story that hasn't been told yet. This is because it shows how brittle even the strongest crowns can be when an institution founded on tradition is forced to bend for the sake of a child. We would like to hear from you now, though. Do you think the palace really did what was best for Prince Louis? Or do you think the royal family is still hiding something from the public? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. In order to ensure that you never miss the next revelation, please like this video, subscribe to the channel Celeb X, and enable notifications if you prefer in-depth explorations of royal drama, hidden secrets, and the stories that the headlines only hint at. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.